Okay, so I think we're good to go. All right, just gonna go ahead and start. First time streaming, hope this works. Let me just make sure I have one app moved where I need it. Okay. All right, I see you. It's not letting you go to the link. Backup server. That's my stream length. Stream health. Share. Copy. Okay. There we go. All right, so I think we're good. So in this video, I'm just gonna walk through how to create a web app using this library called Dash in Python. This is going to be a series of videos. The first video, the goal is just to get a running web app. That's it, right? We just want something up and running, something mildly working, and then we should be good. Hold on, let me see if you're in. Let's see. I don't have a lot of people, but I need to make sure the ones who said they were coming are here. All right. So, like I said, it's going to be a series of videos. Probably in this first video, we're just going to get an app up and running, and then probably build a couple of components in a web app, and that's it. So one thing that I want to explain is just like what a web app is. So a web app is essentially like Twitter is technically a web app whenever you go to it on your browser instead of your phone, right? So you have phone apps and web apps. Phone apps, you use them on your phone. Probably more used to hearing the word app related to those. Twitter is also, there's a desktop version, right? There's that web app. YouTube, there's a web app. Facebook, Instagram. I don't think Snapchat has a web app. I think all that's just a phone application. And so forth. So different types of apps, just like that. So anyways, so how do we build a web app in Python? Well, it used to be really difficult. You used to have to like download Flask and do a whole bunch of sort of HTML and JSX coding. And these wonderful people built this library called Dash that just like removes all of that complexity for you. So it just makes it really easy to get to it. Yeah, so let's go ahead and build this. So what we're going to do first is we're going to, so I have here my environment. I'm in just a folder that I created. And what you should always do when building an application is create a folder that's going to house your virtual environment. So you always want to make sure you pip install virtual env. I already have it installed, but that's what you should see. Oh, yo, what's up, Eliza? Glad you made it. And so you should always create a virtual environment, and to do that, just pip install virtual env. And then from there, it is like really easy. All you have to do is type virtual env, and then literally any folder name you want. I'm going to go ahead and call this dash environment. And what it does is it creates a folder here called dash env, and it installs just some Python basics, so nothing intense. From there, you want to pip install the libraries that you want to put. Oh, whoop, not then. Sorry. Next step is to activate it. So we're just going to go to source, pick your folder, and then you want to go to bin activate. And then now you can see this has been activated. Let me go ahead and expand this so it's all one line. So you can see this has been activated, and I see it here as well. Now we can pip install whatever we want. So I'm going to pip install a few libraries. Pandas is one of them. Dash is another one. Dash bootstrap components is another one. Dash core components. Actually, I think that's built into Dash now. And then I think that is it. In fact, I think actually this might be Bootstrap components. These might be dashes instead of underscores, but we'll just install that for now. So this is going to take a while. I know, right? I love this wallpaper as well. So this is going to take a while because, well, it's downloading a bunch of stuff from the internet. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and go in here into my PyCharm project where I've opened up my sample app folder. And I am going to begin coding. So let me go ahead and there's my dash environment. We don't have to worry about that. But in PyCharm, I do want to set that as my interpreter. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Go to interpreter settings. And then I'm going to go to add an interpreter right here. Existing interpreter. So PyCharm is really smart and it'll look for an environment folder within your folder structure. It found it, and I'm going to go ahead and make it available to everything just in case. I'm going to click OK. Then as you can see, like it's giving us all the things we've downloaded here. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Okay. So it looks like we're good. Let me go ahead and do this. Pip list just to see everything we've installed. All these beautiful libraries. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is create all the files we're going to work with. So I'm going to make the folders first. We're going to need an assets folder, a components folder, a pages folder. We won't use these yet, but you know, just down the road, we're going to use them. So we're going to need all these folders. And then in the components folder, actually, we'll get to all that later. But let's go ahead and then also make a app.py file. So we have this app.py file. And then PyCharm made this main file. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove it because I don't want it. PyCharm did that because it was empty, and PyCharm just does that for you. It thinks it's being helpful. Cool. And we can begin building our Dash app. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do is, let me go ahead and write comments. Imports go here. I would assume you know that, but you know, if you're new to Python, you might not. But we're going to go ahead and import dash. And then I'm going to say import dash dot, or wait, from, no, I think it's just dash core components. That's DCC, but it should tell me this has been deprecated, I think. I think it's going to say, hey, we don't do this anymore. Unused, okay, it's just saying import dash bootstrap components as DVC. And then from, wait, import, actually we'll move this up higher, dash.html. That's HTML. So these are like pretty standard to import when you're building a Dash app. I always import these 4 things. Sometimes I don't import one of these 3 things, but you know, most of the time I'm importing HTML. Most of the time I'm importing Bootstrap. I don't always use core components. I always use HTML and Bootstrap components. And then you just need Dash. So all right, so we're going to go ahead and give our app a name. We're going to call it dash dot dash, and then I think we can go name just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and give it some external style sheets. Actually, let's not do that yet. Let's just give it a name. Server equals app.server. And then the key, so like we have, let me just write this here. I'll explain what this does if you've never seen it. This is pretty common to see here. So if name equals main, you're going to see that in Python. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this because I don't know if you know about it, but it's really important. If name equals main just means if I run the app like this, Python app.py, So the way Python works is it just reads top to bottom. So Python will check here, 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 here. And if you run the app, if you run a script, using this Python command, this will be true. So what this line is doing is it's asking a question. It's saying, if name is main, then do this stuff, right? So if I run it Python app.py, Python's going to go, it's going to do this, 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 and then it's going to come here and ask, hey, does name equals main? Which basically is, did you run this with Python? The answer is yes. So it's going to do this down here. I could put whatever I want down here. I could put print running stuff, and I can comment this out. I can go Python app.py, and it says running stuff, right? So when is it false? Well, this is true if, Python app.py. It's false, like let's say I wanted something from my app.py script and I imported it, then it would be false. So like if I come here to dash bootstrap components, like there's no name equals main here. There's typically not a lot of name equals mains in things. You don't see them too often, but sometimes you do. But anyways, so basically I just want this to run if I call it. That's all this means. I'll delete this now. And this should run. So I'm going to go ahead and go Python app.py. Great. And let's go ahead and go to 127.0.8050. So if I look here, it's throwing, it says to go to 5,000. Whoops. We'll go to 5,000. So if I look here, it's throwing an error. What's the error? Dash exceptions, no layout. The layout was none at the time run server was called. Make sure to set the layout attribute before running the server. So what is a layout attribute? Well, that's like the whole secret sauce to the app. That's one of the many ingredients in the secret sauce. So I'm going to say app.layout, and right now this equals none, which is why it's throwing this error. What we can do is we want to actually give it something. So boom, I've given it a div element. And if I look, and I come back here, boom, here's my app. I have a running app now. That's it. You can build apps now. It's pretty simple. It's as simple as that. Now the key is what to put in this layout. So a div element in web design, I don't know why they call it div. That's a really good question. Why div element? My guess is it would be like diverse, because it could be defines a division or a section. Oh, okay. Well, it just also means diverse. Div is really like, it just encapsulates something. So like if you're ever on a web page and you inspect it, and you like see these boxes around stuff, those boxes are typically div elements, and we call them containers usually. So I'm going to go ahead and create my div element, and in it, I'm going to put children, and children are just the things that go within our containers. So like I'm going to say H1, and I'm going to say Rafa's data teaching app. Actually, I'll put sample app, and I'll put an apostrophe here. So now when I come here, you see it right there, right? And then if I inspect it, like let me inspect this real quick. We see that I have this H1 element, but notice that it is surrounded, and you can't really notice that because it's so tiny, but it's surrounded by this div element right there. So the div element's just encapsulating this. And then if I wanted to, I could actually wrap this in another div element. Like if we zoom out, it's kind of hard to see it zoomed in, I think, but all this div element has is like a child, and this child just it's going to contain everything. And then you should always give your elements a name. So I'm going to give it a class name, and I'm going to just call it app container, just like that. So there's my app container, my sample app. And let's say I wanted to add another component. Well, I could go dbc button, just like that. And if I come here, you'll see a little button has appeared, and I can give it a name. I can say button push here. Cool. And it puts some text in the button. So this is a component called a button. Now, dash bootstrap components. The best thing about Dash is you can read about everything. So I can come to button, and we see all of these buttons here, and we see the code that generates them. This is really common. Like, let's say you want a button that does this, right? That when you click it, it outputs this. So what a lot of people do is they will just copy and paste this code, and they will just slap it in their app. I'm gonna call this button 2. This callback needs to go down below. Don't worry about this. We'll talk about callbacks. I'm just trying to show you what's going on here. Button 2. And then that should work. So if I come here, back to my app, I have the button. Pretty easy. That's a lot of what you do at first when you don't really know what you're doing. You just see something like, ooh, I like that success button. You find it. Where is that success button here? Right there. And then you grab it. And you just paste it in. It's as easy as that. You know, you can come here, do that. I think we're good. And then I can come here, and I have a success button. So lots of different buttons. And you could do that with any component. Like there's cards that you can put in your web app if you want to put a card. Carousels, fades. All these things are things that you can use. You can put a nav bar in here. I don't really use nav bars. But let's just put one in here. Let's put one right at the top. So we'll just do nav bar. So let's just like read the Python code. I'm copying and pasting a lot, but all we're doing is setting this variable button2 equal to something, right? And in this case, it's equal to a div element that contains a button that contains some text. This nav bar is going to equal a nav bar symbol, and then you can read through it and understand it. But then so I've created this nav bar, but if I go to my app, notice it's not there. So how do I actually put the nav bar in my app? Well, I have to put it in my layout. So your layout is literally what's going to go into your application, what people are going to see. And here's my nav bar now. So it is like literally that simple as far as just understanding how this works. Getting things to work the way you want, not so simple. So I'm just trying to show you that you can get components pretty easy and slap them in your layout pretty easily, just so you can have a starting off point. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete all these because, you know, it's cool to see it. It can be confusing and it can be a lot. So let's go back to sort of the basics. We'll go back to this. We'll refresh our page and we're back to our sample app. So the next part, and arguably one of the most fun parts, is styling our app. So we just go to external style sheets equals, and then DBC has in it themes that you can just use. And we can pick any of these. You can actually see samples of these online. Let's go ahead and just do Yeti to see what that looks like. Cool. And we get this kind of a text. We can do, I think there's like a material theme. Materia. Materia is a good theme usually. Yeah, we'll do that theme for now. But like your theme, you know, have fun with them. You could pick a lot of them. Style sheets are a lot of fun to work with. I don't know too much about the styling. I'm kind of learning about that right now. Okay, so we built an app. It's successfully up there. Let's add a component to it. So I just want to add a component where I can type in to it, and that's it. So how do I do that? Well, that component is called a dash bootstrap components. Let me see. That is called a sorry. Input. And input just means I can put stuff in it. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to say dvc.input, just like that. And inputs have, you can put a placeholder. So that way, you know, this is holding its place for now. And then then from there, you can just input stuff into it. So like, here's a value. Now let's go to inspect. One thing I like to do is go to inspect. Oh, I'm using PyCharm. I love PyCharm. Happy to walk you through how to set it up. And if I go to inspect and I go to, actually, let's do this. It should open up a, isn't debug equal to true? Let's do app.run. Let me do this real quick. There should be, now it's 80/50. That's so weird, depending on how you do it. Cool. So now we can actually debug it. One thing I like in debugging is we can have this menu down here to look for stuff. So, and if we come here, I can inspect this and go to, I want to say there is, God, there should be some kind of, I want to say it's somewhere here. There's a way to see the, maybe it's under properties. I can't find it. It might be, God, let me see. Input form. Man, I wish I could find it. There's a way to actually see the value as you're typing it in. Here it is. So it's not under get ref. That has to do with, there's the children, autocomplete. Man, I wish I could find it. I'm so sorry that I can't. But it's, you should get really familiar with just inspecting your stuff as you use it, because that's really going to help you make things dynamic. So if I come here and I put this placeholder here, well, that doesn't actually, I can type in anything I want, but that's actually not going to help a lot. So let's go ahead and put in dvc dot, yeah, let's do this. Let's do html.div, and we're going to call this class name equals output box. And then output goes here. Okay. So here we have an output box. Now, if I type here, nothing changes, right? And that's because my output box and my input box are not talking to one another. So to do that, we have to create a callback. So let's just do, let's make a function called replace output. In this function, we're going to go ahead and take in a value. And that value, we're going to wrap it into an HTML2. So let's just go ahead and put, let's just say new h2 equals html.h2 value. Return new h2. So what this is going to do, actually, let's return it as a list. What this is going to do is take in a value and it spits it out in an h2 box. So it's going to put that value here. Okay. Now what I want is for when I change my input component, I want it to actually talk to my output box. So it'll say, hey, output box, I want you to listen to me. And to do that, because it's not talking to it now, right? I can type more stuff and nothing happens because I haven't told the app, hey, these two things talk to one another. This isn't talking to the box below. So how do we tell it that? Well, I say from dash dot dependencies, bring in input output. And what that will do is allow me to actually feed inputs of one component into a function. So I'm going to say app.callback, and callbacks always contain inputs. And the input I want, you need two parts of an input. You need a component ID and a component property. Remember, components are just, if you see this, these are all components. So which component do we want? We want our input component, but we haven't given our input component an ID. So I'm going to go ahead and say ID equals, we'll just say input box. I can come here, I can give it a name. Great. Now, your property are anything that is contained in this input component. So if I come here, these are my prop names. They're also called prop names. You have an ID, autocomplete, autofocus, autocomplete, blah, 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 blah. And basically, we need to put one of these into our component property. Well, what do we care about? We don't care about any of these. What we actually care about is value. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to put value. Just like that. And now this is actually taking in, I don't know if this is going to, so let me go to, so it's saying, hey, your callback, it's not outputting to anything. All right, so if I go to callbacks, it's not allowing it because there's an error. So yeah, so whenever you create a callback, we need inputs, but we also need output. So we're like, hey, we're going to take this in and we need to return, because your return is your output. We need to put that somewhere on your app. So where do we put it? Well, I would like to take this and remove it and replace it with this one, right? So to do that, it's really easy. We're going to put component ID, component property. And what's the component ID? Well, this doesn't have this has a class name. Sorry, this box. But I need to give it an ID. So I'm going to say output box. So the ID is output box. Now, what property do I want to replace? Notice I'm not talking about this right here because I don't want to do that. Let me see. At least I don't think I do. Yeah, we don't really give this. Yeah, we don't really mess with this one. So, sorry, just ignore that. I was just making sure of something. But the component that I want to play with is this box right here. And what do I want to replace? Well, I want to replace the children. Currently, the children is html.h2 output goes here. I want the child to be this new h2. So to do that, I just come here and I put children. And what that says is take this and replace the children, replace the current children with whatever you have. So whoops. Let me save. Oh. It shut down. Output box. Component property. Children. Let's see if all inputs. Oh, I must provide all outputs first. My bad. So in dash, so this is just a syntax problem. Dash expects to see the outputs first and then the inputs. So my apologies. So the input or the output goes here and that relates here. And then the input is what's being fed into here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we'll go ahead and run this again. Yep, all running now. Cool. Now it's not loading anything here. And why? How come? So let's see if we can figure that out. I don't know if anyone's still there listening to me, but I'm at, because I don't want to just ask a question into the void, but I might be doing that. But how come when we load our app now, we're not even seeing output goes here? Like, I don't even need this anymore. Right? I could just do this. Why? Well, it's because our app is populating this child now. But what's it populating it with? Well, the value currently, what's the value of this box? Nothing. I haven't typed anything in it. So let's go ahead and just give it a value. So let's say if value is none, value equals nothing has been typed yet. And then we'll make our box and then we'll populate it. So let me go ahead and refresh. What if value is, okay. Don't know how I messed that up. If I come here, boom. So now it's saying, hey, here's my input box. The value is undefined. Because it's undefined, it's outputting into the child, and it's outputting this right here. Nothing has been typed yet, so I can come to children and so forth. All right, so now watch this. It's outputting whatever I type. So, pretty simple stuff. We created an input box. We created an output box, and we got them to talk to one another. That's it. That's pretty great. It would be cool to be able to type into this and not replace it live, right? This shouldn't be live. And you see how this isn't actually, man, it would be cool if that also wasn't doing that. What would be cool is if I had like a button, like I could type, hit a button, and then it popped up. So let's do that. We can do that. To do that, first, I'm going to actually take my input and I'm going to wrap it up into something. So I'm going to say input container equals html.div children equals dbc dot input, and then placeholder equals type here. And I'm going to go ahead and put my input container here. And I'm going to call this input box and get rid of my old one. And if I look, it should be like the exact same thing. Yeah, so it's the same thing. All I'm doing is using like a container now to hold my input. And why? Well, I want to add a button. So I have my input. I'm also going to say a button, and I'm going to click submit. And then buttons have this property called endclicks, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. Just like this. In fact, we can say style, size. I don't think it's called status. What is it called? Let's go to button. See, this button's blue. Let's say I want this button to look like this right here, this info. Outline, color equals info. So we'll do color equals info. Outline equals true. Cool, and it says submit. Oh yeah, that's nice. But now notice if I type, it's not listening to the button, right? I can click the button. It's actually really cool because the button has clicks and it's tracking them right now, but it doesn't matter because the typing is what I want to change. So how do we do that? Well, we want our input to be the button. So I got to come here. I got to go to button and clicks. But the problem with that, let me show you now. This is going to be really, really funny. Component ID. Oh, I didn't give it an ID. So I'm going to say ID equals input. Actually, I'll say submit button. Submit button. Submit button. So you see what's happening? The end clicks is what's getting fed in for this value. And it's basically putting that in my H2. So if the value is 0, it's 0. And if I click, it just goes up. But I don't want that, right? I just want the click to trigger the callback. I actually want to grab the input of, where is it at? Of my input box. I want to grab the value of my input box. So how do I grab that? Well, I need something else. I need to add, so I'm going to say value equals none, and I'm going to say n clicks. Just like that. Now if I refresh, I can click, and this is good because now when I clicking, this isn't changing. That's great. And that's because my end clicks is getting fed into this first value, and there's nothing getting fed into the second value yet. That's okay. We don't need anything to get fed. And so this value by default is none. Right? And so it's just going to always return this. Now, if I remove this, it'll throw an error. Watch. And it's saying, hey, you have two things. You have end clicks and value, and you're only passing one thing in. That's why we have to default it, because we want it to be able to take in end clicks, and we don't really need it to take in a value. Okay. So what's the next thing I do? Well, I can't use two inputs. I don't know how to, personally, I don't know how to do that, but I want to use the value of my input box. So how do I do that? Well, it's this thing called state handling, which is a very complex idea in web application design. And if you're going to really learn anything, I think learning state handling is like, it's a journey, but it's kind of the same thing, right? So input box value. So what's happening here? Input, that word input coming from the dash call, the app callback, input triggers the callback. When you mess with the input component, it's going to trigger that callback. So in our case, what's our component? It's that button. When I click that button, it triggers the callback. Where's it going to return? When it returns this value, where's that value going to go? It's going to go here to the output. So what is state? Well, state is grabbing anything that you want it to, and it's grabbing the current value or the current state of that object. So for input, when I hit click, it's looking at the input box and it's saying, hey, here's the input box in time right now, currently. What component property do we want? Well, we want the value of it. Do I have to just get the value? No, I could get anything in that input box that I want. I want value for now. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And now when I type, notice it's not being triggered yet. You see? Nothing's been triggered. So if I go to input box, the value is, this is really cool, but the submit hasn't been clicked. So if I click submit, now it changes this. You see? And how it triggered that? And if I look at this graph here, this graph is this used to not exist. This is like very new in Dash, but you can see here is the callback. The straight line, the filled in line is what triggers it. And the dash line is everything that's going to go into it, but it doesn't trigger it. So the button triggers it. This value goes into it. And really we can do whatever we want with this value. Right? I could do this. I could say if value is none, do this, and then I could say value equals look at what you typed, and I could do that just like this. I could do an else statement. So if it's none, return this. Otherwise, do this right here. So nothing's been typed yet. I am typing so much stuff. Look at what you typed. See, so callbacks are not super complicated. State handling can get really complicated. Callbacks are simple. You need an input, you need an output. State handling and getting the right things that you want, that can get really complicated. And I think the best thing to do is to build a form. If you can build a web app form, you can kind of build anything. So that's what we're going to do. I just wanted to put an intro on some stuff, and then we'll go ahead and build a form in our next app video. Thank you for watching. I think I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. It was a pleasure. Have a good one.